as global attention turns to yet another round of confrontation between Washington and Tehran, and to the American Armada gathering off Iran's coast. An equally high-stakes contest is unfolding across the Persian Gulf, a contest between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. At the center of this struggle stands Crown Prince Muhammad bin Salman, the controversial heir to the Saudi throne, who rose to power amid a series of major scandals. In 2015, as a 30-year-old defense minister, he drew the kingdom into Yemen's civil war, a decision that would become a strategic disaster. In 2017, he launched a sweeping purge within the royal family, detaining more than 200 princes and businessmen in Riyadh's Ritz-Carlton. A year later, inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, his agents murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a prominent critic of the crown prince. And yet, Mohammed bin Salman is a man of many faces. Alongside the image of a ruthless strongman stands that of an ambitious reformer, one determined to transform not only the Saudi economy, but Saudi society itself. For years, in pursuing this transformation, MBS had a powerful ally, Mohammed bin Zayed, the ruler of the United Arab Emirates, and a political mentor to the young Saudi prince. Together they intervened in Yemen. Together they imposed a blockade on Qatar. Together they backed the campaign of maximum pressure against Iran. It is no exaggeration to say that Mohammed bin Zayed played a pivotal role in MBS's rise to Saudi throne. But their paths have since diverged, and today the former mentor and his protégé are locked in an increasingly intense rivalry for influence. The clearest symbol of that rivalry came last December, when southern Yemeni separatists, backed by the UAE, launched a large-scale offensive against government forces supported by Saudi Arabia. In response, Saudi aircraft struck the port of Mukalla, a key transit point for Emirati weapons shipments destined for the separatists. And yet the Saudi-Emirati competition extends far beyond Yemen. From Sudan to Libya, from Somalia to the corridors of power in Washington and Beijing, the interests of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi are colliding. They are competing for influence, for resources, and for leadership in emerging sectors, from finance to advanced technology. The stakes are nothing less than dominance on the Arab side of the Persian Gulf. And all of this is unfolding at a critical moment for the Middle East, a region undergoing a profound realignment. Turkey is seeking a reset with Saudi Arabia. In Syria, the fall of Bashar al-Assad has opened a political vacuum, now contested by regional powers. Iran's sphere of influence is weakening. The so-called axis of resistance has been severely degraded. And the future of the Islamic Republic itself is increasingly uncertain. Meanwhile, the United States and Israel are preparing for another round of confrontation with Tehran. The old order is breaking down. The new one has yet to emerge. The cards are being reshuffled, and Mohammed bin Salman is determined to ensure Saudi Arabia emerges from this transition not just intact, but as the region's dominant power.
Today's wars aren't won just by firepower. Success depends on strategy, managing resources, forming alliances, and adapting faster than your rivals. That's the core of Supremacy, World War III, a free-to-play online PvP strategy game where you lead a real-world nation in the middle of a global crisis. You'll face up to 99 other players in real-time matches that can run for weeks, expanding your economy and building a cutting-edge military force. Tanks, fighter jets, submarines, and advanced missile systems. One of the newest additions is the Elite Officer system. Powerful commanders with unique abilities that you unlock and permanently level up, giving you lasting tactical advantages and new strategic paths in future games. You can play on both PC and mobile, picking up your campaign whenever and wherever you want. Use the link in the description to unlock a free seasonal unit, the Elite Railgun, valued at $40. The bonus is available for new players and can be claimed within 30 days.
To understand today's tensions between the Arab neighbors, we need to go back to 2015. That was the year Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates launched a joint military intervention in Yemen under the codename Operation Decisive Storm. The campaign was aimed at the Houthi movement, which in just 4 months had seized the capital, Sana'a, and swept across most of the country, advancing to the gates of Aden. The city was on the verge of falling. Had it collapsed, the Houthis would likely have taken control of all of Yemen. That was the moment Saudi Arabia and the UAE stepped in, deeply alarmed by the Houthis' close ties to the Islamic Republic of Iran. At first, the Saudi-Emirati coalition operated as a single, coordinated force, pushing the Houthis out of southern Yemen. But over time, the strategic objectives of the two partners began to diverge. Saudi Arabia focused on supporting the internationally recognized government of President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi. The UAE had a different vision. Abu Dhabi began building its own network of influence in southern Yemen. Emirati money and weapons flowed steadily to the Southern Transitional Council, a separatist movement seeking to restore an independent South Yemen. Inevitably, this undermined the legitimacy of the central government backed by Riyadh. For years, this double game continued beneath the surface, hidden behind diplomatic courtesies, until December 2025. In early December, the Southern Transitional Council launched a lightning offensive under the codename Promising Future. Within days, Emirati armed separatist forces seized control of the provinces of Hadramaut and Mahra, territories bordering Saudi Arabia. In doing so, they captured areas containing roughly 80% of Yemen's oil reserves. As if that were not enough, separatist leader Aidarus al-Zubaydi announced plans to hold a referendum on the independence of South Yemen. Muhammad bin Salman was furious. Determined to put an end to the Emirati project in Yemen once and for all, Saudi Arabia began mobilizing forces along the border. In early January 2026, Riyadh launched a counteroffensive. Saudi forces targeted not only the separatists, but Emirati assets as well. Among the targets was the port of Mukalla, a key hub used by the UAE to deliver weapons to southern forces. The result was devastating. By January 9, 2026, the Southern Transitional Council had effectively collapsed. Its leader, Aidarus al-Zubaydi, fled to Abu Dhabi via Somaliland. A decade-long Emirati project had been wiped out. And more than that, the UAE had been publicly humiliated by Mohammed bin Salman. Media outlets began speaking of a fracture in the Saudi-Emirati alliance. But for long-time observers of the region, the reality is that the alliance had existed largely on paper for years. Behind the scenes, the two countries had already been competing intensely for influence. Yemen is only one arena in that rivalry. At the same time, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are locked in parallel contests for power in the Horn of Africa and in Sudan. Sudan has become the bloodiest arena of this competition. The civil war that erupted there in April 2023 is, alongside Ukraine, the world's largest ongoing humanitarian catastrophe. The conflict has claimed up to 400,000 lives and forced more than 13 million people from their homes. In this war, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates are backing opposing sides. Riyadh supports the Sudanese armed forces, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. Abu Dhabi, meanwhile, backs the Rapid Support Forces, the powerful paramilitary group commanded by Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, a warlord from Darfur. Officially, both Saudi Arabia and the UAE deny direct involvement, but the evidence tells a different story. The UAE is believed to be supplying large quantities of weapons to the Rapid Support Forces, using smuggling networks that run through Chad, eastern Libya, and Ethiopia. It has also reportedly financed foreign mercenaries, including fighters from Colombia, who are now operating on Dagalo's side. For Abu Dhabi, the partnership brings significant economic benefits. Most of Sudan's gold reserves are located in areas under Dagalo's control. That gold is then smuggled, primarily to Dubai. The illegal trade in Sudanese gold is estimated to be worth around $13 billion, with the bulk of these flows passing through the Emirates. Saudi Arabia, meanwhile, is consolidating its position on the opposite side of the conflict, as the political patron of the Sudanese army and the General Burhan. In recent months, Saudi support has increased significantly. Two developments help explain this shift: the escalation of tensions in Yemen and the fall of El-Fasher. After an 18-month siege, Rapid Support Forces captured the city, the army's last stronghold in Darfur, and then carried out mass executions of civilians. Some estimates suggest that as many as 60,000 people may have been killed in the massacres. The fall of El-Fasher dramatically strengthened the pro-Emirati camp in Sudan, effectively placing all of Darfur under its control. Analysts now warn that the country may be heading toward a permanent partition, split into two rival spheres of power. In response, Saudi Arabia stepped up its support for the Sudanese army. Working in coordination with Egypt, Riyadh restricted access to its airspace for Emirati cargo planes suspected of transporting weapons to the Rapid Support Forces. At the same time, the Saudis acted as intermediaries in a major arms deal between Pakistan and the Sudanese army. According to reports, the agreement is worth roughly $4 billion. It includes Chinese-Pakistani JF-17 Thunder fighter jets, more than 200 drones, air defense systems, and additional categories of military equipment. And that's not all. During a visit to the White House in November, Muhammad bin Salman reportedly asked President Trump to designate the Rapid Support Forces as a terrorist organization and to impose secondary sanctions on the United Arab Emirates. But the Saudi-Emirati rivalry in Africa extends far beyond Sudan. Its second key theater is the Horn of Africa, especially Somalia. For years, the UAE has been building an extensive military and economic footprint there. Emirati logistics giant DP World secured a 30-year concession for the port of Berbera in Somaliland, investing $442 million in its expansion. Near the port, the UAE also established a military base. In Bosaso, the main port city of the autonomous Puntland region, the Emirates upgraded the airport, created a logistics hub, and trained local security forces. In Mogadishu itself, Abu Dhabi operated a training facility that processed thousands of Somali soldiers and police officers. In effect, the UAE became Somalia's most important external security partner. That changed at the end of 2025. First, Israel, in a move widely interpreted as coordinated with the UAE, recognized the independence of Somaliland. For the government in Mogadishu, which considers Somaliland as integral part of Somalia, the decision was a major blow. Then came another revelation. The UAE had used Somali airspace to evacuate the leader of Yemen's southern separatists, Aidarus al-Zubaydi. Saudi Arabia moved quickly to capitalize on the situation. In coordination with Riyadh, Somalia's federal government announced the cancellation of all agreements with Abu Dhabi, military and commercial alike, including port management concessions. But turning these political declarations into reality will be far more difficult. Both Somaliland and Puntland operate largely independently of the central government. Authorities in Puntland have openly declared that their partnership with the UAE remains intact. Somaliland has taken a similar position, while not recognizing the authority of Mogadishu at all. How do we explain the rupture between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates? If Mohammed bin Zayed was for years the mentor of Muhammad bin Salman, if together they helped shape the regional order, why have they now become strategic rivals? The answer does not lie in Yemen, Sudan, or Somalia. Tensions between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi had surfaced before on each of these fronts, but for years they were contained. So what changed this time? The Middle East itself. The region is undergoing a profound geopolitical shift, one that has removed the very foundation of the Saudi-Emirati alliance. For more than a decade, that foundation was a common enemy. Iran. As long as Tehran's network of influence posed an existential threat to both Gulf monarchies, Riyadh and Abu Dhabi had no choice but to stand together. But over the past 2 years, the Iranian threat has weakened dramatically. The fall of Bashar al-Assad deprived Tehran of a critical link in its regional network. Hezbollah, the most powerful pillar of Iran's so-called axis of resistance, has been severely degraded. Iran's sphere of influence is fragmenting, and inside Iran itself, the regime is facing its deepest crisis since the Islamic Revolution. As the primary threat fades, so does the logic of maintaining a costly strategic partnership. Muhammad bin Salman simply no longer needs the UAE the way he did in 2015. But Iran's decline is only half the story. The other half is the rise of a new alignment, the Israel-UAE axis. Abraham Accords of 2020 gave Abu Dhabi something Riyadh still does not have: a strategic partnership with the region's most powerful military, along with access to advanced Israeli technologies. Over the past 3 years, Israel has scored a series of major successes against Iran's network. Hamas has been effectively dismantled as a military force. Hezbollah has been severely weakened, and Israel has struck directly at Iranian territory. These victories have not yet translated into a stable new regional order, but the potential is enormous, and the UAE, as Israel's closest Arab partner, is well positioned to help shape the emerging system. From Riyadh's perspective, this creates a dangerous scenario. In place of a weakening Iranian axis of resistance, a new triangle could emerge: Israel, the UAE, and the United States, shaping the future of the Middle East without Saudi Arabia. For Mohammed bin Salman, that would mean strategic encirclement and geopolitical marginalization. That is why the Saudi Crown Prince is moving with such urgency, pushing back against Emirati influence before it becomes fully consolidated. There is also a powerful economic dimension to the rivalry. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 means that the kingdom is moving directly into sectors long dominated by the UAE: tourism, finance, artificial intelligence, and the race to attract regional headquarters of multinational corporations. In response to these overlapping challenges, MBS is building his own security architecture, one designed to counterbalance the Israel-UAE alignment. On the one hand, he continues to deepen ties with Washington. On the other, he is constructing a network of alternative partnerships, insurance against the possibility that American security guarantees may not always be enough. The central pillar of Saudi Arabia's new security architecture is Pakistan. In September 2025, the two countries signed a strategic mutual defense treaty, an agreement modeled on NATO's Article 5, under which an attack on one is treated as an attack on both. It is an unprecedented step. Saudi Arabia has never before entered into such a far-reaching defense commitment with any country. Not even with the United States, despite decades of close strategic ties, has Riyadh managed to secure a formal mutual defense treaty. But the agreement appears to carry a deeper nuclear dimension. Shortly after the signing, Pakistan's defense minister publicly suggested that the pact covers the use of all military means to repel aggression. The wording has fueled speculation that the treaty may include undisclosed provisions extending Pakistan's nuclear umbrella over the kingdom. Saudi Arabia is already leveraging its strategic partnership with Pakistan to strengthen its broader network of allies. One example, Riyadh's role as mediator in the previously mentioned Pakistani arms deliveries to the Sudanese military. But Pakistan is not the only member of the team Mohammed bin Salman is assembling. Perhaps the most surprising piece of the puzzle is Turkey. Just a few years ago, following the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan publicly released recordings from the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, demanding accountability and directly accusing MBS of silencing his critics. Today, the two leaders behave as if none of that ever happened. On February 3rd this year, Erdogan visited Riyadh, signaling his readiness to deepen bilateral ties. 2 days later, he announced that Saudi Arabia was considering investment in the Khan program, Turkey's 5th-generation fighter jet, and the rapprochement goes further. In December last year, the chiefs of staff of both countries signed an agreement establishing a formal military dialogue. According to Bloomberg, a draft trilateral defense treaty linking Riyadh, Islamabad, and Ankara is now under preparation. If such a pact were finalized, it would create a powerful strategic combination: Saudi capital, Pakistani nuclear capabilities, and the Turkish military, the second largest army in NATO. No regional player could afford to ignore such a coalition. Some media outlets have already labeled this potential alignment an Islamic NATO. But that framing misses the point. A Saudi-Turkey-Pakistan bloc would not be a purely military alliance. Its primary purpose would be political and strategic coordination, above all, to counterbalance the emerging Israel-UAE axis. Elements of that coordination are already visible. In Syria, for example, both Saudi Arabia and Turkey are backing the central government in Damascus, positioning themselves against Israeli efforts aimed at establishing a Druze protectorate in the country's south. One look at the map and a clear pattern begins to emerge. 2 rival camps taking shape across the region. On the Emirati side, the alignment includes Israel, Somaliland, Puntland, Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, and potentially Ethiopia. For years, Addis Ababa has been deepening ties with both the UAE and Israel. Its ambitions to secure access to the Red Sea through the port of Berbera are a source of growing concern, not only in Mogadishu but also in Riyadh. The Saudi camp is just as revealing. Here we find Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Somalia's federal government, and the Sudanese armed forces under General Burhan, and Eritrea, a small state but one with strategic importance for Saudi plans to strengthen its position along the western shores of the Red Sea. There is also a less obvious pattern behind this division. The Emirati sphere of influence relies heavily on networks of non-state actors, separatist movements, and partially recognized or unrecognized entities, stretching from southern Yemen to Darfur and Somaliland. The Saudi bloc, by contrast, is built around recognized states and central governments, from Ankara and Cairo to Mogadishu, Khartoum, and Islamabad. This reflects a fundamental difference in strategic approach. The UAE seeks to shape the regional order by empowering non-state actors and alternative power structures. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, is pursuing influence by reinforcing existing states and the authority of their central governments. You may have noticed that one key player is largely absent from this Saudi-Emirati rivalry: Iran. Just a few years ago, Tehran would have been at the center of any analysis of Middle Eastern alliances. Today, it is the great absentee. There are 2 reasons for this. First, since 2023, Iran's so-called axis of resistance has been significantly weakened. At the same time, the Islamic Republic is struggling with mounting internal pressures and the constant threat of confrontation with the United States and Israel. Under these conditions, Iran simply lacks the capacity to play an active role in the strategic contest between Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, especially because Muhammad bin Salman has taken deliberate steps to neutralize the Iranian threat. Before opening a front against the UAE, he first closed the one with Iran. In 2023, with China acting as a mediator, Saudi Arabia and Iran signed a normalization agreement in Beijing. Since then, relations between the 2 countries have developed at a pace that surprised even the most optimistic observers. In 2024, the 2 sides conducted their first ever joint naval exercises. Then in April 2025, Saudi Defense Minister Prince Khalid bin Salman, MBS's brother, visited Tehran. It was the highest level Saudi visit since 1997. During the trip, he met not only with President Masoud Pezeshkian, but also with Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This is not a genuine reconciliation. it is closer to a cold peace, but one that brings tangible benefits to both sides. For Iran, it provides a diplomatic lifeline at the time of growing international isolation. For Mohammed bin Salman, it offers a strategic reassurance that his geopolitical projects will not be disrupted by Tehran, allowing him to focus his attention on the real competition now emerging across the Gulf, the rivalry with the United Arab Emirates. And so the rivalry between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates is not just another diplomatic quarrel between Gulf neighbors. It is a clash between two competing visions of the Middle East's future. When Mohammed bin Salman first stepped onto the regional stage more than a decade ago, he was seen as a young and impulsive prince, someone who destroyed more than he built. The war in Yemen was supposed to be a quick victory. It became Saudi Arabia's Vietnam. The Ritz-Carlton purge and the murder of Jamal Khashoggi shut many doors for him in the West for years. At the time, many analysts wrote him off. Today, MBS has returned as a very different player. A leader who managed to neutralize Iran through diplomacy, who rebuilt ties with former adversaries, and who publicly humiliated the UAE in Yemen, all within the span of just a few months. But the game is far from over. On the other side stands Mohammed bin Zayed, MBS's former mentor and a man who understands his thinking better than anyone else. Who is likely to prevail? On paper, the balance of power favors Riyadh. Saudi Arabia has 5 times the population, 4 times the territory, vastly larger resource reserves, and a growing network of allies. The UAE, for its part, brings agility, operational speed, and a valuable strategic partnership with Israel. But its reliance on separatist movements and paramilitary proxies carries a structural weakness. It creates instability that can ultimately turn against its own architects. Yemen is the clearest example. The former master and the former apprentice now stand on opposite sides, and this time, only one of them can come out on top.
A quick reminder, Supremacy, World War III is a free online PvP strategy game set in a modern global conflict, where you compete against real players for world dominance. Head to the link in the description to secure your free elite railgun unit, worth $40. The offer is valid for 30 days and applies to new players only.